Welcome, everyone. Today, we are going to talk about something that has the power to change the way you study, the way you work, and the way you live forever. We are not talking about how to learn faster. We are not talking about how to study harder or force yourself to sit at a desk for 10 hours a day. We are talking about something fundamentally more important than all of that. We are talking about how to actually remember what you study. Because let us be completely honest with each other. If you study for 6 exhausting hours and then you forget absolutely everything the moment you sit down for the exam, what is the point? If you spend your late nights reading textbooks, sacrificing your sleep, but you cannot recall a single useful fact when you actually need it in the real world, what is the use of all that hard work? This is the harsh truth that most students and teachers never, ever talk about. Success is not about how much you study. It is about how much you actually remember. I want you to really think about it. How many times have you studied a chapter, felt completely confident that you understood every single word, and then, just 1 week later, you realized you had forgotten almost everything? How many times have you revised a topic again and again, but the moment someone asks you a question about it, your mind goes completely blank? You feel that sudden panic, that heavy silence, that deep fear of failure. I need you to understand something right now. That blank mind does not happen because you are not smart. It does not happen because you are naturally bad at studying. It happens because you were never taught how to train your memory. And that is exactly why this video exists. Today, I am not just going to give you a list of cheap, basic study tips. I am going to teach you the deep mechanics of your own mind. I am going to show you exactly how your memory works, how your brain actually learns, why it naturally deletes information, and how you can fix this problem forever. This is not just a trick for passing exams. This is a vital, real-life skill that will make you unstoppable in every subject, every career, and every major goal you set for yourself. But before I give you the specific techniques, we must first understand the machine itself. We must understand how your brain filters the world. Your brain essentially has 3 levels of memory, and if you do not understand them, you will keep using the exact wrong methods. Level 1 is your sensory memory. This is the very first filter. Imagine you walk into a massive, beautiful library. In 1 single second, you see hundreds of colorful books. You hear the quiet sound of pages turning. You feel the cold air of the AC on your skin. You smell the old paper. All of this massive amount of data enters your brain at the exact same time. But do you remember all of it the next day? No. Because sensory memory only lasts for 1 to 5 seconds. That is it. If you do not actively pay attention to something, it immediately disappears forever. So, what is the ultimate lesson here? Attention is the absolute first step to memory. If you are sitting at your desk studying, but your phone is lying right next to you and your mind is secretly thinking about a conversation you had yesterday, then nothing you read will ever reach your memory. Your brain will immediately delete the textbook page exactly like a useless computer file. You will read the same page 5 times and remember nothing, not because you are weak, but because your attention was weak. Level 2 is your short-term memory. If you do pay attention, the information enters the second level. Think of short-term memory like a very small, fragile table inside your brain. You can place a few items on it, but if you put too many, things will start falling off. Science tells us that your short-term memory can only hold about 5 to 9 pieces of information at one time, and it only lasts for about 15 to 30 seconds. If I give you a list of 5 random words right now, you will remember them for a few seconds. But if I keep adding 20 more words, your brain will start dropping the first ones. If you want information to survive the fragile table of short-term memory, you must force it into the final level, long-term memory. Long-term memory is the ultimate vault of your brain. This is where real, permanent learning happens. Everything you truly know, your own name, your home address, your deep childhood memories, the exact sound of your mother's voice, all of that lives safely in your long-term memory. But information does not just magically walk into the vault. It has to earn its way in. It must pass through fierce attention. It must be strengthened by repetition. It must be connected to deep meaning or emotion, and it must be locked in by proper sleep. Memory is not a magical gift given to a few lucky people at birth. It is a highly specific method. People who remember everything are not naturally gifted. They are simply trained, and the most beautiful part of this truth is that you can train your memory too. It does not matter how much you have forgotten in the past. Starting today, you are going to use the exact strategies that match how your brain is actually wired to learn. Let me ask you a very simple but incredibly dangerous question. When you sit down with your books, do you study to truly understand the world? Or do you study just to survive the exam? Most people study with the completely wrong mindset. They study out of pure fear. They memorize just to survive the next test. They take a bright highlighter and they paint every single line in the textbook, hoping that the physical color will magically transfer the knowledge into their tired brain. They reread the exact same chapters again and again until their eyes hurt. But the moment someone looks at them and asks them to simply explain what they just read, they freeze. The words get stuck in their throat. Their mind goes completely blank. Why does this happen so often? Because they never actually understood the topic in the first place. They never connected with the knowledge. They never made the information their own. This brings us to technique number 1, the Feynman technique. You must learn exactly as if you are going to teach it. This powerful method is named after one of the greatest scientific minds in human history, Richard Feynman, a brilliant Nobel Prize-winning physicist. But what made Feynman truly legendary was not just his ability to understand incredibly complex science. It was his unique, undeniable ability to explain those deeply complex things in extremely simple, everyday language. He lived by one strict, unbreakable rule. If you cannot explain a concept to a child, then you do not understand it yourself. Here is the exact, step-by-step method that will make your memory 10 times stronger than it was yesterday. Step 1. Study with the strict mindset of a teacher. When you open a book or start a new chapter, do not think to yourself, I need to memorize this so I can pass. Instead, you must think, tomorrow morning, I have to stand in front of a room and teach this exact concept to someone who knows absolutely nothing about it. When you actively switch your identity from a desperate student to a responsible teacher, your entire brain chemistry changes. Your brain instantly becomes sharper. You stop just looking at words, and you start looking for deep meaning. You start asking better questions, because a teacher must truly understand. Step 2. After learning, you must close the book and explain it out loud. Yes, out loud. Do not just whisper it quietly inside your mind. Do not just think about it. You must force your vocal cords to speak the words clearly, slowly, and confidently to an empty room. Pretend someone is sitting right in front of you, looking confused, asking you, "Can you please explain this to me?" Let us say you are studying the process of photosynthesis in biology. After reading it once, physically close the book. Say out loud, photosynthesis is the beautiful process by which green plants make their own food using sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water. Imagine saying this clearly and confidently. You are not memorizing a robotic textbook definition. You are telling a story, and because you understand the story, you will naturally remember it. Step 3. Find your gaps and fix them immediately. When you try to speak out loud, you will inevitably stumble. You will suddenly realize, wait, what exactly happens after the plant takes in carbon dioxide? Where does the glucose go? This moment of hesitation is not a failure. It is a massive, beautiful victory. Because right in that moment, your brain is loudly showing you the exact missing piece of the puzzle. Now you can open the book, go directly to that specific weak spot, and fix it permanently. This find and fix method is the most powerful learning tool in the world. Step 4. The ultimate test. Teach someone else. Find a friend, a family member, or even your younger sibling, and ask them for just 2 minutes of their time. Even if they do not care about the subject at all, it does not matter. The goal is not their understanding. The goal is your learning. Every single time you study, ask yourself this one heavy question. Could I explain this to a 10-year-old child right now? If the answer is yes, you have truly mastered it. If the answer is no, you must read it again and explain it again. Because teaching is not the final step of learning. Teaching is exactly how real learning begins. Let us be completely, brutally honest with each other for a moment. The real reason you forget what you study is not because the subject is too difficult. It is not because the textbook is too thick. And it is certainly not because you have a bad brain. The real reason you forget is simply because you do not care about it. Think about your own life. You effortlessly remember the exact birthday of your favorite actor. You remember the exact lyrics to a song you have only heard twice in your entire life. You perfectly remember a painful argument you had with a friend 3 years ago, or the exact words someone used when they praised you in front of a room. You did not use flashcards to remember those moments. You did not read them 10 times. So, why are they permanently locked inside your brain? Because there was emotion, there was passion, there was deep, undeniable meaning. Now, compare that vibrant, living memory to this, a boring science chapter, a complicated math formula that you hate, a long list of historical dates, a robotic definition that you have stared at for an hour. You forget these things again, and again, and again, because there is absolutely no feeling attached to them. This leads us to one of the most powerful, undeniable truths about human biology. The brain remembers what it feels, not what it reads. Your memory is physically and permanently connected to the emotional center of your brain. The more emotion you feel, the stronger and deeper the memory becomes. If you want to stop forgetting, you must stop studying like a cold, lifeless robot. You must bring the information to life. Here is exactly how you do that, step by step. Step 1. You must aggressively link your current studies to your ultimate dreams. Do not just study biology to pass a Tuesday morning test. Study biology because it is the complex, beautiful map of the human body that you need to master so you can become a doctor and save lives. Do not study math because the teacher told you to. Study math because it is the pure science of problem solving that you will use to build a massive, successful business. Do not study English just to get a grade. Study English because it is the weapon of communication that will allow you to walk into any room, in any country, and speak with total, unshakable confidence. When you actively connect a boring subject to your massive future goals, your mind instantly wakes up. It says, pay attention, this is not a test, this is my future. Step 2. Use your wild imagination to create emotion out of nowhere. Even the absolute most boring subject in the world can become deeply interesting when you force imagination into it. Let us say you are studying chemistry. Instead of reading the periodic table like a machine, imagine the chemical elements as characters in a dramatic movie. Imagine hydrogen as the youngest, most hyperactive child who cannot sit still. Imagine oxygen as the incredibly loyal friend who holds everyone together. Imagine carbon as the creative artist of the group. This might sound completely silly to you, but it works flawlessly. Why? Because the human brain loves drama. It loves stories. It remembers stories 10 times better than it remembers raw data. Create stories, create conflict, create fun. That is exactly how emotion enters a dry topic, and that is how the memory becomes permanent. Step 3. Change your physical environment. Passion is not just a mental game. It is a highly physical one. If you always study lying comfortably on your bed, surrounded by a messy room and loud, distracting noises, your brain will naturally feel lazy and bored. It will literally prepare you for sleep, not for success. But if you stand up, clear your desk, set up a sharp, focused space, and dress like you're about to do something incredibly important, everything shifts. You are signaling to your nervous system that this moment matters. Step 4. Study in short, intense bursts, not in exhausting marathons. Do not try to force yourself to love a boring textbook for 6 hours straight. You will only build hatred for the subject. Start with 25 minutes of pure, unbroken focus. Then, stop. Give yourself a 5-minute break. Step away, breathe, and reward yourself with a walk or a small snack. This positive reinforcement creates a biological link in your brain between studying and the feeling of joy. Slowly, your brain actually starts liking the process. You do not need to magically love every single subject you are forced to learn. But you absolutely must find a reason to care. You must find a reason to connect, because the brain simply does not keep what is dry and dead. It only keeps what is alive. Let us talk about one of the biggest, most damaging lies you have ever been told about your education. The lie is that sitting at your desk for 6 exhausting hours automatically makes you a better student. The brutal, honest truth is that most students who study for 6 hours a day are actually wasting more than 4 of those hours doing completely the wrong things. They are reading, rereading, aggressively highlighting every single line with a bright marker, endlessly repeating the same words, stressing themselves out, and at the end of the day, they still forget everything. Meanwhile, another student in the exact same class studies for just one highly focused hour, and they remember absolutely everything. How is this physically possible? It is not magic. It is not genetics. It is because one person is simply studying longer, while the other person is actively studying smarter. This brings us to technique number 3, the 80/20 rule of learning. This is also known in the business and science world as the Pareto principle. It is one of the most powerful, undeniable laws of human effort. The rule clearly states that 80% of your desired results will always come from just 20% of your actual efforts. In simple, brutal words, only a very small fraction of what you do actually creates your success. The rest of it is just comfortable, exhausting noise. Let us apply this universal law directly to your textbook. If you have a heavy 10-page chapter, I can promise you that only 2 of those pages contain the absolute core concepts. The other 8 pages are just long explanations, repeated examples, and basic filler words. If you are preparing for a massive exam with 100 possible questions, it is highly likely that 20 of those core topics will show up on 80% of the test. So, what exactly should you do with this powerful information? You must completely stop trying to study everything perfectly. You must become a strategic learner, not a blind hard worker. You must focus your valuable, limited energy on the vital 20% that actually gives you 80% of the results. Before you read a single page, stop and ask yourself, what are the absolute most important concepts in this topic? What does my teacher constantly repeat in class? What did last year's exam focus on the most? Write down the top 3 critical takeaways after every single class and highlight only what you actually need to survive, not the whole book. You must also be deeply honest about your personal weak spots. If you already understand a chapter perfectly well, stop revising it just because it makes you feel safe and comfortable. Stop hiding in the easy chapters. Use your time to fiercely attack the 20% that you do not know, because that uncomfortable 20% is exactly what is stopping you from scoring full marks. If you are amazing at writing beautiful essays, but you are completely terrible at basic grammar, you must spend 80% of your study time fixing your grammar. That is what actually creates real, undeniable progress. Let us look at 2 different students preparing for the exact same massive exam. Student A sits down, opens the textbook, and reads every single word line by line, every single night. He studies for 6 exhausting hours, but he never asks himself deep questions, and he never tests his own memory. He is confusing physical exhaustion with actual learning. Student B sits down and spends the very first 30 minutes simply identifying the most critical key areas of the syllabus. Then he spends just 1.5 hours doing intense practice tests, heavily reviewing his mistakes, speaking the complex answers out loud, and building a highly connected mind map. On exam day, student A is stressed, exhausted, and completely forgets the answers under pressure. Student B scores significantly higher, with far less stress, far less time invested, and a much sharper, deeply reliable memory. Why? Because student B used the 80/20 rule. Anyone can sit in a chair for hours staring blankly at a book. But real, undeniable success comes from having the courage to ask what actually matters most. Stop trying to digest the entire ocean of information. Find the vital few concepts that truly matter, and when you master those, your entire academic life changes forever. I want you to try a simple experiment with me right now. Close your eyes for just a second and think about your childhood home. Instantly, without any effort, you can see the exact color of your bedroom walls. You know the exact place where your favorite toys were kept. You can practically smell the food in the kitchen, and you can remember the specific sound of the front door opening. Now, keeping that in mind, I want you to try something else. Try to remember the exact definition of a scientific term or a historical date that you read just last week. Suddenly, the screen in your mind goes completely blank. The information is gone. Why is that? Why is it so incredibly easy to remember a house from 10 years ago, but so painfully difficult to remember a textbook page from 7 days ago? Because of the undeniable biology of human evolution, your brain was never designed to remember abstract black and white words printed on a flat piece of paper. Your brain is highly visual, and it is highly spatial. It evolved to remember physical space, direction, vivid colors, and exact locations in order to survive. This brings us to technique number 4, the memory palace. This is not a myth. This is the exact proven technique used by the world's greatest memory champions to memorize thousands of random numbers, entire decks of playing cards, and massive, complex speeches without looking at a single note. And starting today, it is going to become your ultimate superpower. Here is exactly how you build your very first memory palace. First, you must pick a location that is permanently burned into your brain. Your own house is the perfect place. Picture your physical front door. Then, picture walking into your living room, moving to your kitchen table, walking down the hall to your bedroom, and finally ending at your bathroom mirror. You now have a clear, logical 5-step path. Now, let us imagine you need to memorize 5 critical points for a history exam on the causes of World War I: alliances, nationalism, the assassination of the Archduke, militarism, and imperialism. Instead of writing those 5 boring words down 20 times and praying that you remember them, you are going to place them inside your house. Imagine walking up to your front door and standing right there are 2 giant men in heavy suits aggressively shaking hands. That striking image locks in the word alliances. You open the door and walk into your living room. Covering the entire ceiling is a massive, colorful, waving flag. That is your trigger for nationalism. You step into your kitchen, and lying right in the middle of your kitchen table is a glowing, blood-red news headline about an assassination. You walk into your bedroom and you are shocked to see heavy metal army tanks and guns covering your floor. That bizarre image is militarism. Finally, you walk into your bathroom, look into the mirror, and instead of seeing your own reflection, you see an ancient king wearing a gold crown, aggressively pointing at a world map. That is imperialism. Now, simply take a mental walk through your own house, from the front door to the living room, to the kitchen, to the bedroom, to the bathroom. As you walk through the physical space in your mind, every single crazy, vivid image triggers the exact piece of information you need. Why does this work so flawlessly? Because instead of forcing your brain to do something it hates, which is remembering dry facts, you attach those facts to something it deeply loves, familiar locations and bizarre, emotional imagination. You activate both the logical side of your brain and the creative side of your brain at the exact same time. Make your images crazy. Make them funny. Make them completely ridiculous. The stranger the image, the more permanent the memory becomes. Stop trying to force raw data into your tired mind and start building palaces of knowledge that you can walk through for the rest of your life. There's a very dangerous myth in the world of students and high achievers. It is the myth of the late-night grind. We see pictures on social media of people drinking endless cups of coffee at 2 o'clock in the morning, sitting in the dark, staring at their glowing screens, forcing themselves to study when their eyes are completely red and heavy. We are told that this is what dedication looks like. We are told that this is the ultimate secret of hard work, but I am here to tell you that biologically, scientifically, and logically, this is one of the worst things you can possibly do to your memory. This brings us to technique number 5, unlock the golden hours of your brain. You must understand that the human brain is not a machine that you can just plug into the wall and run at maximum speed for 24 hours a day. It is a biological organ, and it runs on a very strict, undeniable biological clock known as your circadian rhythm. This cycle controls your physical energy, your mood, your focus, and most importantly, your ability to form permanent memories. Let us look at what actually happens when you try to study complex, difficult subjects late at night. By 9 or 10 o'clock in the evening, your brain has already been awake for 14 hours. In those 14 hours, you have made hundreds, maybe thousands of micro-decisions. You have talked to people. You have solved problems. You have scrolled through endless social media feeds, and you have absorbed massive amounts of random, chaotic information. By the time night falls, your brain is suffering from severe decision fatigue. It is emotionally exhausted. Your mental energy tank is sitting at absolute zero. So when you open a heavy textbook at midnight and try to force new information inside, your brain is actively rejecting it. It is exactly like trying to pour fresh, clean water into a glass that is already overflowing with muddy water. You might feel like you are studying hard, but your retention is incredibly low. That is exactly why you can read a chapter 3 times at night and wake up the next morning feeling like you never read it at all. Now, let us flip the script. Let us look at the morning. In the first 2 to 3 hours after you wake up, your brain is in its absolute most powerful, pristine state. This is what we call the golden learning window. Your mind is incredibly fresh. It is completely free from decision fatigue. There is absolutely no mental noise from the day yet. Your biological dopamine levels are naturally high, which dramatically increases your focus and your drive. Your willpower is at its absolute peak. Your morning brain is exactly like a perfectly clean, blank canvas. If you use this golden window for deep concentration, you will absorb information faster and deeper than at any other time of the day. Most of the greatest thinkers, brilliant writers, and top-tier scientists throughout human history did their most heavy, complex work in the early morning, not because it sounded like a cool motivational quote, but because it is an undeniable biological advantage. Here's exactly how you capture this power. Rule number 1. You do not need to wake up at 4 in the morning to be successful. That is another myth. Waking up at 6 or 7 is perfectly fine, as long as you actually sleep early enough to wake up feeling fully rested. A tired brain at 5 in the morning is just as useless as a tired brain at midnight. Rule number 2. You must fiercely protect the first hour of your day. The moment you open your eyes, do not touch your smartphone. Do not look at social media. Do not open your messages, and do not check your emails. The very second you look at your phone, you are flooding your perfectly clean brain with the world's chaotic noise. You are throwing away your golden window. Use that first hour strictly for deep learning. Rule number 3. Attack your hardest subjects first. Do not start your beautiful morning by doing easy, comfortable revision. If you heavily struggle with complex math, difficult science, or memorizing long, painful essays, you must do that exact work first thing in the morning. Your brain has the maximum capacity to handle high complexity at this exact time. Save the easy, passive work for the afternoon or the evening. Just imagine this simple, powerful routine. You wake up at 7. You wash your face and drink a glass of water. From 7:30 to 8:30, you sit down in complete silence and study your most difficult, intimidating topic with absolute unbroken focus. In just that one single hour, your actual learning and memory retention will be significantly stronger, deeper, and more permanent than 3 miserable hours of tired, unfocused studying late at night. It is not just about how long you study. It is about when you study. Stop fighting your biology. Study smart, not late. Let me share a biological secret with you that completely destroys the way most people think about hard work. The absolute truth is this: you do not actually remember while you are studying. You remember while you are resting. Yes, you heard that perfectly right. The real physical process of remembering does not happen when your eyes are scanning a book. It happens after you finally close the book and walk away. That exact moment of pause is when your brain starts its real heavy work behind the scenes. Let us understand exactly how this machinery works. When you sit at your desk and study, your brain is actively receiving new information. In neuroscience, this is called encoding. You are simply feeding raw data into your biological system. But at that exact moment, the information is incredibly fragile. It is exactly like wet cement. It needs time to settle. It needs time to organize, and it absolutely needs time to become solid. This critical drying process is called consolidation, and consolidation only happens during rest, specifically during deep sleep and quiet, disconnected breaks. When you rest, your brain secretly replays everything you just learned. It filters through the noise, it completely removes the useless parts, and it actively connects the new knowledge to your old, existing knowledge. It builds permanent storage pathways. Without this quiet time of rest, the information stays dangerously weak and soon completely disappears. What exactly happens if you refuse to rest? What happens if you try to be a hero and study for 5 unbroken hours? You keep aggressively feeding your brain more and more data, but you give it absolutely zero time to process it. It is exactly like pouring expensive water into a bottle that has no cap. Everything simply spills out and goes to waste. That is exactly why, after a 5-hour marathon study session, you feel incredibly dizzy, confused, and you have absolutely no idea what you actually remember. Your memory becomes deeply unstable. Here is how you fix this immediately. You must use the 50/10 rule. Study with pure, brutal focus for exactly 50 minutes. Then you must force yourself to take a strict 10-minute break. But listen to me very carefully. During this break, you must get up, walk around, stretch your body, and breathe deeply. You absolutely must not touch your phone. If you spend your 10-minute break scrolling through highly stimulating, fast-paced social media videos, you are immediately destroying the consolidation process. Your brain is trying to save your math or science formulas, and you are aggressively interrupting it with cheap internet noise. The useless content replaces the valuable knowledge. You must protect your brain's rest, exactly like you protect your bank account. And finally, you must respect the ultimate power of sleep. If you study a difficult topic right before you go to bed, your brain will automatically review it and lock it in during your deep sleep cycles. That is why students who revise their notes at night and then actually get 8 hours of sleep always remember significantly better the next day. Rest is not a sign of weakness. Rest is not wasting time. Rest is the exact biological moment when your brain hits the save button on all your hard work. In a loud world that constantly tells you to hustle more and study harder, you must be smart enough to understand that real memory is built in the silence. It is built in the pauses. The person who rests well remembers well. When you finally finish reading a heavy, difficult chapter, what is the very first thing you do next? If your honest answer is, I just read it again, or I highlight the important words, or I copy the notes down, then you are making the exact same catastrophic mistake that millions of struggling students make every single day. You are trying to build your memory by simply reviewing. But here is the ultimate scientific truth that changes everything. The human brain does not remember what you review. It remembers what you actively retrieve. This brings us to technique number 7, active recall. I need you to understand that this is not just another basic study tip. This is the absolute, undisputed secret weapon of the world's greatest memory champions, top-tier medical students, and elite high achievers everywhere. Active recall means aggressively testing yourself. It means deliberately pulling information out of your brain instead of lazily trying to push information in. It is the exact opposite of passive reading. Let us say you just read 10 new complicated English words. The average student will simply stare at that list of words for 5 minutes, hoping the brain absorbs them like a sponge. But the elite student will close the book immediately. They will look at a blank wall and ask themselves, what were those 10 words? They will force their brain to search in the dark. Maybe they only remember 6. That is perfectly fine. They will open the book, check the 4 missing words, close the book again, and repeat the brutal process. That is active recall, and it is infinitely more powerful than reading a page 100 times, because every single time you struggle to remember something, every time you force your brain to pull that information out, you are permanently strengthening the neural pathway. Think about it exactly like going to the gym. If you want to build physical muscle, you have to lift heavy weights yourself. You have to feel the burn. Passive reading is exactly like sitting on a bench and watching someone else lift the weights. It feels incredibly easy. It feels comfortable, but you do not get any stronger. If you want a strong memory, your brain must do the heavy lifting. Here is exactly how you apply this to your daily life. First, stop completely relying on your beautifully highlighted notes. After reading a topic, forcefully close the book. Ask yourself out loud, what did I just learn? Can I write it down from pure memory right now? Second, start using flashcards, but use them correctly. Write a simple question on the front and the answer on the back. When you look at the question, do not immediately flip the card over. You must force your brain to struggle for the answer for at least 5 seconds. That struggle is the exact biological moment your memory grows. Third, use the blurting method. This is incredibly powerful. After studying a massive topic, take a completely blank sheet of paper. Hide all your books. Now, write down absolutely everything you can possibly remember about that topic as fast as you can. Dump it all onto the paper. When you are completely empty, open your textbook and compare. Look at all the critical points you missed. Pick up a red pen and add those missing pieces to your paper. You have just forced your brain to engage at the absolute deepest level. Let us look at two students preparing for a massive, life-changing exam. Student A reads every single chapter 4 times. He uses 3 different colored highlighters. He feels incredibly productive. Student B reads the chapter only once, but then he immediately starts testing himself. He uses flashcards. He uses the blurting method. He explains the concepts to an empty room. In the final test, student A freezes. He forgets everything under pressure. Student B remembers the answers instantly, with absolute cold clarity. Why? Because student A only stored the information, but he never actually practiced retrieving it. Student B trained his brain to recall under pressure, and that is exactly why he won. If you only read, you will always forget. If you aggressively test yourself, you will remember forever. Reading is simply input. Recall is output. And true, unbreakable memory is only built through output. So, starting today, stop asking yourself, how many times should I read this? Start asking, how many times can I remember this without looking? That is when your real growth finally begins. We are finally at the point where we need to talk about the absolute most common mistake that almost every student on the planet makes. It is the mistake of copying notes from a textbook directly onto a flat, lined piece of paper, paragraph after paragraph, word for word. Let me be very clear. The human brain is absolutely not a textbook. It does not think in long, perfectly straight lines of text. It does not naturally process heavy blocks of black ink. Your brain evolved to think in explosions of ideas, vivid images, vibrant colors, and fast connections. That is exactly why, when you sit down and read a heavy textbook for an hour, you feel incredibly tired and bored. But when you go to the cinema and watch a 2-hour movie filled with color, action, and connected storylines, you remember every single detail. Your brain deeply loves visual structure. This brings us to technique number 8, mind mapping. A mind map is not just a drawing, it is the exact physical representation of how your neurons actually connect. It is a highly visual, incredibly fast way of organizing heavy information. You start with one massive main topic right in the absolute center of a blank page. Then you draw thick branches coming straight out of it. Each main branch is for a major subtopic, and then smaller, thinner branches spread out for the tiny details, specific examples, or critical keywords. You are literally turning a boring, flat chapter into a vibrant, living tree of knowledge. It is clear, it is colorful, and most importantly, it is deeply connected. Let us use a simple example. You are studying the biological process of photosynthesis. Do not write a boring page of notes. Take a large, blank sheet of paper. In the exact center, draw a strong circle and write photosynthesis. Now, draw 5 thick branches radiating out. Definition, process, inputs, outputs, and importance. Under the process branch, draw smaller lines for light absorption, water uptake, carbon dioxide, and glucose formation. Use colored pens. Add small, fast drawings. Draw a bright yellow sun for energy. Draw a small green leaf. Add red arrows connecting the ideas. You have just taken a dense, confusing page of text and transformed it into a clear, visual map. Your brain absolutely loves this. It triggers multiple memory systems at the exact same time: visual memory, logical structure, creativity, color association, and pattern recognition. It is like storing your valuable memory in a flexible, indestructible web instead of a fragile, rigid box. Even if you completely forget one tiny detail on a branch, you can easily travel through the other connected branches to find the answer. And now, we combine this visual power with the ultimate memory hack. This is technique number 9. Use pure, dramatic, emotional imagination. Let me tell you an undeniable fact about human biology. You will always remember exactly what made you feel something. You might easily forget a chapter you read 5 times yesterday, but you will perfectly remember a movie scene you saw 5 long years ago. You might forget the scientific name of a bone, but you will vividly remember the first time you felt deeply embarrassed in front of your class, the exact moment of a terrible fight with your best friend, or the warm, heavy feeling when someone truly praised you. Why? Because your brain does not store information based on logic. It stores information based on pure emotion. If something makes you feel strong emotion, your brain instantly saves it. If something is boring and flat, your brain instantly deletes it. The powerful answer to this problem is emotional imagination. This is one of the oldest, most powerful brain tools in human history. It means aggressively using your own mind to attach fake feelings, wild stories, crazy images, or absolute exaggeration to the boring things you desperately need to remember. This is the exact technique used by memory champions to memorize thousands of random numbers and entire books. Once you master it, you will realize a profound truth. The more you feel something, the less you will ever forget it. Turn dead facts into living stories. Do not just memorize bullet points. Let us say you need to remember the 3 parts of an atom: protons, electrons, and neutrons. Instead of robotic repetition, tell yourself a ridiculous story. There are 3 brothers living in the atom kingdom. Proton is always ridiculously positive, always smiling and happy. Electron is completely negative, always angry and moody. Neutron is totally calm and perfectly neutral. It is a silly story, yes, but you will never, ever forget it again. Use visual, explosive images. If you are learning complex vocabulary or long formulas, add crazy, colorful pictures in your mind. To remember that water is H2O, imagine 2 giant, muscular hydrogen atoms carrying 1 heavy oxygen atom on their shoulders across a desert. To remember Einstein's famous equation, E=mc², imagine Albert Einstein running a marathon with a massive cape that has E=mc² burning in bright, hot flames behind him. The crazier the image, the more permanent the memory becomes. If something is painfully boring, make it funny, make it dramatic. Your brain has a specific emotional memory center called the amygdala. When you feel strong emotion, even totally imagined emotion, the amygdala violently sends a signal to your entire brain. This is important. Save it now. That is exactly why you remember embarrassing moments from 10 years ago. If you can give your dry study material that exact same emotional shock, your brain will never forget it. You do not have a bad memory problem. You have a massive meaning problem. Because your brain absolutely does not forget what you feel. It only forgets what you do not care about. So, starting right now, stop memorizing like a tired robot. Start learning like a wild storyteller. Feel the information, see it, imagine it, and let your memory become completely unforgettable. We have finally arrived at the missing link. You have learned how to protect your attention, how to build memory palaces, and how to use the golden hours of your morning. But if you do not master this final technique, all of that beautiful knowledge will stay locked inside your head, completely useless when you actually need it the most. This brings us to technique number 10. Speak what you study. You absolutely must train your physical mouth to train your biological brain. Look at how the average student studies today. They lock themselves in their bedroom, they open their textbook, and they study in absolute dead silence. They read silently in their mind. They try to solve complex problems in their mind. They try to memorize heavy, complicated answers entirely in their mind. But what actually happens when they walk into a massive exam? What happens when they sit across from a manager in a life-changing job interview? Or when they have to stand up and speak in front of a class? They freeze. They stutter. The perfect answer is sitting somewhere deep inside their brain, but they cannot say it clearly. They struggle to find the words. They panic, and ultimately, they fail. Why does this tragic disconnect happen? Because their brain technically knew the information, but their physical mouth was never trained to speak it. They created a massive gap between internal knowledge and external communication. If you want to permanently remember what you study, you must start talking while you learn. When you force yourself to speak out loud, something incredible happens biologically. You activate the language and motor centers of your brain. You actively slow down your racing thoughts. You are forced to organize the chaotic information into clear, logical sentences. And most importantly, you physically hear your own voice speaking the truth, which creates a powerful second channel of learning. This is what neuroscientists call dual reinforcement. One pathway is formed through the brain thinking, And the second pathway is formed through the ears, hearing. Together, they make your memory absolutely solid, reliable, and unshakable under pressure. Starting today, you must read out loud. When you are going through a heavy chapter, do not just scan it silently with your eyes. Move your lips. Use your vocal cords. Be physically active. Even if you are sitting completely alone in your room, especially if you are alone, speak as if you are giving a master class to an audience. Use the teach the wall technique. If absolutely no one is around to listen to you, stand up, look directly at a blank wall or a mirror, and pretend it is a classroom full of students waiting for your knowledge. Say out loud, "Good morning, class. Today, I am going to explain exactly how the human nervous system works." This might feel incredibly strange or funny at first, but it works with brutal efficiency. Because when you speak with that level of loud intention, your brain takes the information seriously. It stops treating the textbook like a suggestion and starts treating it like a deep conviction. Reading is absolutely not enough. Writing is simply not enough. Speaking completes the ultimate circle of learning. So from this moment on, every single time you study something new and difficult, ask yourself one final question. Have I spoken this out loud at least once today? Because when your mouth successfully trains your brain, your knowledge becomes an undeniable weapon. And now we have reached the end of our journey together. I want you to look back at everything we have talked about today. You now know the absolute truth. You do not need a magical, perfect brain to be successful. You do not need to be born a genius. You simply needed the right strategy. And now you have it in your hands. For years, you might have believed the terrible lie that you were just naturally bad at remembering things. You might have blamed yourself for every failed test, every forgotten name, and every moment your mind went blank. But it was never your fault. You were just operating a highly advanced biological machine without the proper instruction manual. But today, the rules have changed. Today, you are stepping out of the darkness and taking absolute control of your mind. You know how to filter the noise. You know how to force your brain to care. You know how to study smart, rest properly, and demand greatness from your own memory. The techniques are right in front of you. But reading about them will not change your life. Listening to my voice will not pass your exams. Only raw, relentless execution will build your future. You must apply these techniques. You must test yourself when it hurts. You must build your palaces and speak your truth out loud until you cannot get it wrong. Train your brain starting tomorrow morning and watch how incredibly fast you start remembering everything you study clearly, confidently, and forever. If this masterclass truly opened your eyes and gave you the tools to finally win, do not let this momentum die. Subscribe to this channel right now because we are just getting started on building the strongest, most unstoppable version of you. Let us grow together. Have an incredible, powerful day and go master your mind.